I apologize that my mom's face is up there. I turned all the notifications off, and she still haunts me everywhere I go. It's amazing, isn't it? All you mothers, you just know how to do it. Do you remember the old, back in the 90s, the NBC announcements, public broadcasting announcements, or whatever they called them? The more you know. Dun, 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 dun. The little rainbow that would come across. It was a public service announcement, and they would get celebrities, and they would talk about like education and drugs and all these different things. And then it would be the more you know. Do you ever feel like there's a reason why they stopped those? Right? Do you ever get to a point where the more you know, the more you wished you actually knew less? Right? Like, we're in that time where everything is public, everything is instant, everything is out there, and there's nothing that people don't air publicly. And so we're learning more and more and more and more. And I was just reading this morning, because this whole thing with teachers having these relationships, they call them relationships, it's not what it is, but these sexual encounters with their students, especially female teachers now, right? They're now the predators. This has increased exponentially in the last 2 years. In the last 2 years, the number of cases, and it's not your imagination, you're seeing more and more stories. It's not just your imagination, it's the instances are increasing exponentially. And I just wrote a blog this past week, and I made predictions for the year 2018. So I had 3 major predictions just based on culturally what's going to happen. That actually was not one of mine, but it should have been. That should have been my number 4, is that we're going to see this increase, continue to increase in these scandals with teachers and students. What's going on? The more we know, right, the more we wish we didn't know. I don't think it's that culture is getting worse. I think it's just that we're getting to a place where we're seeing injustices and all these bad things going on because people are airing it, and the more people air it and the more people put it out there, the more people learn, and we learn from each other, right? We learn culturally. A lot of what we do is learned behavior. We learned it in the home, or we learned it in our circle of friends, or we learned, kids that grow up in the inner city behave differently. They just do. They behave differently than people who grew up, tipping cows in the middle of the night in rural Pennsylvania. We just are shaped by the culture around us and by the community around us. And so we're seeing more and more and more, and some days, like, it just makes you want to hide under a rock and wish it to all go away. Well, Habakkuk saw plenty in his days. We're going to be in Habakkuk. Some of you, you're like, where's Habakkuk? It's in the Old Testament. Not really a book that many people study, but it happens to be one of my favorite books. I love Habakkuk because Habakkuk is so real, and he's crying out to God, and he's just mad. He's just angry with God. And he's angry that he's seeing all these injustices in the world. And Habakkuk's saying, there are all these righteous people, and all these horrible things are happening to them. And God, I've been crying out to you, and you're not doing anything to change it. Do we ever feel that way? I just listened to 2 voicemails this morning. I didn't mention this yet. I'll mention it now. But it was Becky Dickey, Dave Berman's mom. She was calling, left 2 voicemails, asking us to pray for Dave and Cynthia's daughter, Anna, she's in the critical care unit right now, 17 years old, just chronic health issues from the day she was born. And she has these autoimmune diseases, and she's just not in good shape. Cynthia just put a post this morning. It was an update on Anna. It's not good. And we feel those things, right? We feel them. And the more we know, the more we feel that burden. And we see these innocent, righteous people, whether it's disease or whether it's just injustices at the hands of other evil people. We see these things and we cry out to God and we say, how long? Can we relate with that? Listen to Habakkuk, how it opens up. The oracle that Habakkuk the prophet saw. O Lord God, how long shall I cry for help, and you will not hear? Or cry to you, violence, and you will not save? Why do you make me see iniquity, and why do you idly look at wrong? You hear that? Do you hear it in his voice? Why do you make me see these things, and you sit idly by? You open my eyes to it. The more you know, you open my eyes, and it's like you awaken this in me, and I'm seeing these injustices. I'm seeing these innocent people, these righteous people who have these horrible, horrible lives, and these horrible things that are being done to them. And God, you sit idly by. Why do you make me see iniquity, and why do you idly look at wrong? Destruction and violence are before me. Strife and contention arise. So the law is paralyzed, and justice never goes forth. For the wicked surround the righteous, so justice goes forth perverted. You hear Habakkuk, he's saying that there's no justice. The justice that's out there is corrupt. It's these evil people, and they're harassing the righteous people, and the evil people just go on and they live their lives, and they're living their happy, merry lives, and they're healthy, they're happy. Things are going on, life goes on for them. God answers him, and he says, I'm going to do something that's going to surprise you. Something like you've never seen before. I'm going to take the Babylonians, that ruthless generation, I'm going to rise them up, and they're going to be my judgment hand on the Israelites. You think you see destruction now, there's going to be destruction. Now imagine hearing that from God. You know that there's going to be this destruction, this mass destruction. It's going to happen. And by the way, it did happen. The Babylonians came in, they just waylaid the Israelites in the south, and in 586 BC, the south fell. Jerusalem was in shambles. They exiled thousands and thousands of Israelites out of Jerusalem. They completely demolished the temple that Solomon had built, burned it to the ground. It was nothing but a pile of burning rubble. Not really the answer Habakkuk wanted to hear, was it? Right? Imagine things in your life are just imploding. It's just falling apart. And you look around and you're like, man, did you ever hear people say, like, we try to comfort people and we're like, well, it could be worse. There's this couple over here, and I know of their really bad situation, and I know this couple, and they're in much worse shape than you. What's the response from those people who we tell that to? That doesn't make me feel better, right? You telling me about more people who just have all these horrible things happening to them, that doesn't make me feel better. And so God comes back, and his response is not, Habakkuk, I hear you, buddy. You're about to turn the corner. You're going to turn a new leaf, and things in your life are just going to blossom, and you're going to have these like little safe communities where they plant like little palm trees in the center of town, and the little children play. God doesn't give that news. God says, oh, Habakkuk, you haven't seen anything yet. Now here's my question. Put yourself in Habakkuk's shoes. The more you know, the more you wish you didn't know. And God just dropped a bombshell on him. Well, Habakkuk does what I think any one of us would have done. He cranks up his complaint. He says, verse 12, chapter 1, Are you not from everlasting, O Lord my God, my Holy One? We shall not die. O Lord, you have ordained them as a judgment, and you, O Rock, have established them for reproof. You who are of purer eyes than to see evil and cannot look at wrong, you do why do you idly look at traitors and remain silent when the wicked swallows up the man more righteous than he? God, you're so pure that you can't even look at evil. And yet you just sit and you let it happen. You make mankind like the fish of the sea, like the crawling things that have no ruler. He brings all of them up with a hook. He drags them out with his net. He gathers them in his dragnet, so he rejoices and is glad. Therefore he sacrifices to his net and makes his offerings to his dragnet, for by them he lives in luxury, and his food is rich. Is he then to keep on emptying his net and mercilessly killing nations forever? Do you hear what he's saying? These people are ruthless, God. Don't you get it? They put their dragnet in the water, and they scoop it up, and they fill it up with all these innocent people, and they just massacre them. This is what they live on. And when they're done, they drop it back in the water and they do it all over again. God, what is... Habakkuk is essentially saying, what is your problem, God? You know, it's interesting. God replies back. He says, Habakkuk, it's the righteous who live by their faith. That's it. You see, everything else can be stripped away. Health, it can be gone in a second. Family, it can be gone, can be wiped out. A lot of us have experienced that. Family members who are in an instant, then that shock that comes, it's just gone in a second. Homes can be gone, can be wiped out in a second. God says this in verse 4 of chapter 2, behold, his soul is puffed up. It is not upright within him, but the righteous shall live by his faith. You see, the person who's unrighteous, his soul, it's puffed up. He believes in himself. This is what he does. He oppresses people. He feeds on other people, and he's puffed up. He's glad in that, and he's proud. He's full of pride and ego. But his soul is not upright within him. See, what God's saying is, Habakkuk, there's going to be a time when the veil is peeled back. There's going to be a judgment someday. These people aren't going to get away with it. You see, the unrighteous, the people who are doing these things, it may look like everything's great in their life, but there's going to come a day when they're going to be judged for it. But the righteous, they live by their faith. See, God doesn't promise us that everywhere we go, we're going to be blessed with health and wealth and, we're going to live on easy street for the rest of our lives. He doesn't promise that. But he promises peace in our lives, and he promises hope. It's fascinating. We sung the song earlier, the Lord is in his holy temple. That comes from chapter 2. We'll start in verse 18. He says, what profit is an idol when its maker has shaped it, a metal image, a teacher of lies? For its maker trusts in his own creation when he makes a speechless idols. Woe to him who says to a wooden thing, awake, to a silent stone, arise. Can this teach? Behold, it is overlaid with gold and silver, and there's no breath in it at all. But the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before him. See, when we're in the presence of God, we might not have everything figured out. In fact, if we claim we have everything figured out, we better check ourselves. God is in his holy temple. Literally, this verse says, let all the earth shut up before him. Be silent. Listen. Worship. And there's peace in that. I mean, there are days, we all feel it. There are days when we've just heard so much bad news, we think we can't take anymore. I don't want to answer the phone. You ever get to that place? Your phone rings and you jump. Your heart skips 10 beats. You're like, what's it going to be now? What tragedy waits on the other end of this phone? See, we have those days. We have those days where we're worn down. We're entering into the week of Thanksgiving. And a lot of us probably don't feel thankful right now. We're Habakkuk. We're crying out. We're saying, God, where are you? Our lives are just crumbling, and people's lives around us are just crumbling. And, here we get a phone call, 2 phone calls to pick up the phone, or 2 voicemails. A 17-year-old girl is laying in critical care. This is their Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. We hear these things, and we're like, God, what is there to be thankful for? And Habakkuk finally gets it. He finally realizes that God is far bigger than all of our problems, that God is far more compassionate than we ever dreamed he was, that God is far more merciful than he ever was. Paul, when he has this aching thing that's bothering him, he calls it a thorn in the flesh. God, 3 times I begged you to remove it from me. I begged you, God, to pull that thing out of me, because this problem, this issue that I had was far bigger than me, and I couldn't bear it any longer. What was God's response? Paul, my grace is sufficient for you. And so Paul joyfully accepts that, and he submits himself fully to God. Says, God, this problem, I'm going to live with it. I'm going to trust in your grace. You see, the righteous live by faith. And Habakkuk, who is about to just experience mind-blowing, horrible tragedy, says this. Bill read this for us a little bit earlier. I hear, and my body trembles. Do you ever get news where you start to shake? You ever been in shock? Any of you? Your body just, it's an automatic response. Your body just starts to tremble, and you just shake. Back, I hear God. I hear what you're saying. My body's trembling. My lips quiver at the sound. Rottenness enters into my bones. My legs tremble beneath me. I hear what you're saying, God. I hear it, and I see it, and it breaks my heart, and I'm shocked at what I'm seeing, and I'm shocked that I'm hearing this come from your lips, God. You saying things are getting much worse. Things are going to be horrible. You think they're bad now? They're going to get much worse. I'm trembling. My whole body is trembling. My lips quiver. Rottenness is inside of my bones. My legs tremble beneath me. Do you ever feel weak-legged? Yet I will quietly wait for the day of trouble to come upon people who invade us. The Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before him. God, I will quietly wait. I will trust. I will sit in my trust. I'm going to fully trust you that when these people come in and they invade us, the trouble is going to come upon them. Though the fig tree should not blossom, nor fruit be on the vines, the produce of the olive fail, and the fields yield no food. You ever been without food? Have you ever seen severe famine? We probably haven't. We live in a very spoiled nation where even when parts of our nation are plagued with famine and severe drought, we've had Texas that went years in severe drought. California, parts of California that are just, it's a barren wasteland. We go to the store, and what do we say? Well, the price of grapes just went up. And we walk out with, guess what? Our grapes. See, we don't know what this means. But Habakkuk, for them, this was their livelihood. This is how they made it to the next day. If the fields are barren, there's scriptures where it talks about cannibalism, because they're so desperate for food. He says, though the fig trees shouldn't blossom, nor fruit be on the vines, nor produce of the olive fail, and the fields yield no food, the flock be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd in the stalls, there's not even meat to eat, there's nothing left to eat, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. God, the Lord, is my strength. He makes my feet like the deer's. He makes me tread on my high places. Do we ever set up high places? It's our security blanket. It's our income. It's our job. It's our whatever it is. We build these high places. They become our idols. Our retirement, whatever it is. We build our high places. And Habakkuk's coming back. He says, God, you make my feet like the deer's. I climb up. I tread up on these high places. And I put them under my feet. Because, God, I'm going to trust in you, and I'm going to trust in you alone. Do you realize what it's like to live like that? Do you realize what freedom comes in that? Do you realize what it's like when you say, God, everything might be wiped out from underneath me, but it doesn't matter. It does not matter because I have you. I trust in you. I trust in my salvation. That, guys, is worthy of thanksgiving. We have people, all of us know friends who are just struggling to the point where they're just chronically depressed, chronic anxiety, some people attempting suicide. We all know people who are in rotten, horrible, Habakkuk-like situations. And what are we waiting for? We need to tell them the good news of Jesus. That is their only hope. I promise you guys. I've seen every solution that's ever been laid out there, and you guys have too, because we have access to the world at our fingertips. There is no solution besides for Jesus. Amen? What are we waiting for? Let's reach out and hold people's hands. Let's be thankful. Let's not be the Christians who are and everything annoys us. Let's go out and let's be genuinely thankful. Let's live in this joy. Let's live in this moment of living out our faith. The righteous shall live by their faith. And let's demonstrate that to people and be a voice of reason and calm and show the world what it is to keep silence before God. Let's wait on God. If there's anybody this morning who has any prayer needs, or anybody who's not yet taken that step to put Christ on in baptism, we invite you to do that. You can come forward, or our shepherds will be in the back as we all stand and sing together.